In the clip presented today on my YouTube channel, I will talk about Airbus Beluga. World's strangest looking plane gets its own airline. Stay like this, but stay with me in the next few minutes to be up to date. Alexandru wishes you a pleasant viewing. The Airbus Beluga, one of the world's strangest airplanes, now has its own airline. The odd-looking, oversized cargo plane, a favorite among plane spotters around the world, has been in service for close to 2 decades. It mainly transports aircraft parts between Airbus manufacturing facilities spread throughout Europe. Now, a new version of the Beluga is replacing the original fleet, which has gone on to power a standalone freight airline called Airbus Beluga Transport. There are very few options on the market for oversized items, says Benoit Lemoir, head of Airbus Beluga Transport. Most often there's a need to partially dismantle a payload to make it fit in an aircraft, whereas in the Beluga, it will just fit the original fleet. The very first Beluga was originally known as the Airbus Supertransporter, but after its nickname, derived from the resemblance to the white Arctic whale, gained popularity, Airbus decided to rename the aircraft Beluga Street, retaining the original name in the acronym. It first flew in 1994 and entered service in 1995, followed over the years by 4 more examples, the last of which was rolled out in late 2000. The Beluga was developed to transport large sections of Airbus aircraft from its factories in France, Germany, the UK, Spain and Turkey to the final assembly lines located in Toulouse and Hamburg, explains Lemoir. It is a very special design, because it's actually a transformation of an AE300-600 that had its entire head removed and then equipped with special fuselage shells, a bigger door and dedicated flight equipment. Before the Beluga, Airbus was using a fleet of Super Guppies, modified versions of 1950s Boeing Stratocruiser passenger planes, that had previously been in service with NASA to ferry spacecraft parts. Now, history is repeating itself as the original Beluga is being replaced by a more spacious and advanced model, the Beluga XL. Longer and bigger than the Street, the Beluga XL is capable of carrying both wings, rather than just one, of the Airbus AE350, the company's latest long-haul aircraft, that rivals the Boeing 787 and 777. The XL is based on a much more modern platform, the AE330, Lemoir adds. Since 2018, 6 XLs have been built, and the latest one will be delivered very soon to the internal Airbus airline. The Beluga XL can fully substitute the Beluga Street on the internal Airbus network, so the Streets can become available for alternative service. How the Belugas compare. Table showing characteristics of the Airbus Beluga Street and Beluga XL. Table with 3 columns and 6 rows. Beluga Street. Beluga XL. First flight, 1994, 2018. Length, 184 feet, 56.16 m, 207 feet, 63.1 m. Wingspan, 147 feet, 44.84 m, 197 feet, 60.3 m. Max payload, 40 metric tons, 44 metric tons. Max range, 1,860 miles, 2,485 miles. Number built, 5.6. Old but not out. The original Beluga Streets might be approaching 2 decades of service, but according to Lemoir, there's still a lot of life left in them. Depending on how often they fly, they may remain in service for 20 more years, easily. Advertising. One of them will keep working for Airbus and ferry aircraft parts, while the remaining 4 will be exclusively in the fleet of the new cargo airline. It's not the first time that the Belugas are used outside Airbus, however. We had some chartered flights between 2000 and 2010, when there was some capacity left and the Beluga were used to transport helicopters and satellites, he says. Then, in 2022, the company completed a dozen test missions in preparation for the airline launch. The difference now is that we are fully standalone, so we can be flexible for our customers and accept date changes, for example, meaning we can stay in one area to wait for a payload, something that would probably be impossible for the Airbus internal airline to do, Lemoir says, because the Beluga Street's cargo hold is 50% higher and 10% wider than regular cargo aircraft, like the Boeing 747-8F. It is generally used to transport voluminous items such as satellites, helicopters, aircraft engines, flight simulators, sailing boats and army vehicles. Flying on the Beluga can be a little different than on regular aircraft, Lemoir notes. It can have a sensitive behavior in the wind due to its big head, and that's why it requires specific training for pilots, he says. But otherwise it flies very much like an AE300-600. The cockpit is totally unchanged. One limitation is the range of 3,000 kilometers, 1,600 nautical miles, which means that trips from Europe to the United States require up to 2 refueling stops, generally in the Azores and Canada. Another is the maximum cargo weight of 40 metric tons. Because the Beluga is designed for volume, rivals like the Antonov AEN-124 can carry 3 times as much weight, and the former largest airplane in the world, the AEN-225, destroyed in 2022, had capacity for a whopping 250 tons. A niche market. The intended operation for the Airbus Beluga transport is quite different to standard commercial freighter operations, according to Gary Cricklow, an aviation analyst at consultancy firm Aviation Value. As transporting helicopters, satellites and other large assets bring certain operational complexities that transporting packages for Amazon would not normally have to deal with, he says. For example, the maximum altitude at which a helicopter's structure is certificated sets the maximum altitude at which the transport flight can operate. Cricklow also notes that while the Beluga Street's capacity of 40 metric tons pales in comparison to Antonov aircraft, there are 5 Beluga Streets, and Airbus advertises them as featuring one of the most voluminous cargo holds of any civil or military aircraft flying today. Clearly Airbus is not aiming to be Amazon Prime, he says, but having amortized each Beluga's €183 million, $199 million, cost over the past 20 years, this would appear to be a relatively low-risk opportunity to earn revenue from a niche of the freighter market.